Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Bright and early, 8:30. My name is Marisol Anaya, and I am currently on a detail with our U.S.-Mexico border program, which allows me to be a co-lead for our RTIC Border Workgroup with Camilo Perez. And yes, I just will be passing on the mic to Camilo in a moment to explain why we're here. We have two great speakers, Gabriel Buda and Jeremy Phillips. So excited, yay, excited for this presentation. But gonna pass it on to why we're here, Camilo.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Marisol, Gabriel, Jeremy. Thank you guys for being here. So after COVID, there was a lot of issues. There was a lot of surplus of hand sanitizer, wipes. There was a lot of questions from tribal governments. How can we dispose of this? Where do we take it? And how can we get the funding to do it? So that's how this presentation, this idea came in, having those issues, having that excess of hand sanitizers, all those pesticide products that maybe we go to Walmart, we purchase the twin packets and now we use one and we don't know what to do with the rest. How do we dispose it? Do we just throw it on the trash can or do we call a number to find out where can we take the product, right? So without being said, I'm gonna pass the microphone to Gabrielle. She's with the US EPA. She's a criminal investigator, and she'll talk about some of the work that she does along the border. There you go.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Gabby Buda. I'm a special agent with EPA. So I'm a federal agent, carry a gun, prosecute criminal charges of environmental laws. I'm going to talk today about a border pesticide initiative that we started about 4 years ago, just to give you a background of what CID does. A lot of people don't know that EPA has a criminal arm. We do have agents all over the country that investigate criminal violations of environmental laws, and most of them tend to be felonies. And so I'll talk just a little bit about the work that we do and give you a background about EPA CID in general. So like I mentioned, federal agents, all of us carry guns. We can prosecute basically any criminal violation of EPA's laws. So that includes Clean Water Act, FIFRA, Clean Air Act, but we also have Title 18 authority, so we can prosecute and charge any Title 18 charges, which include smuggling. And that's one of the main charges that we go after when we're looking at illegal pesticides coming from Mexico into the US. We have people that help us. We have NEIC, which is our lab in Denver that helps us gather evidence, test pesticides, things like that. So we have a lot of people that support our investigations throughout EPA, and that makes us very successful. We have agents all over Region 9, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, and Hawaii. We used to have an office in Phoenix, but it's since closed down. So us agents in San Diego help cover Arizona. So we travel out to Arizona quite frequently for our cases out in Arizona as well. Sorry, I think this got a little messed up. So potential charges when we're looking at pesticides, obviously FIFRA would be our main charge. The illegal sale and distribution of an unregistered pesticide, there are some limitations to it. It is only a misdemeanor for us. So if we charge a FIFRA charge, it ends up only being a misdemeanor. So sometimes we try to go after the Title 18 charges, which is smuggling, aiding, abetting, and conspiracy. So with this border pesticide initiative, we're really looking at people that are buying pesticides in Mexico. They're unregistered. They smuggle them over into the US, and they're using them mostly on illegal marijuana grows. We've seen they're used on tribal lands and they're used on public lands. And so we're trying to stop it from coming into the US. So we'll intercept it at the border, and then from that point, we can charge smuggling because they're now attempting to introduce an unregistered pesticide into the United States. So we can charge smuggling, which is a felony. It carries a weight of about 20 years in prison if we can prove it. Usually we don't get that. It all depends on the judge that we're working with to get prison time. Aiding and abetting and conspiracy. Conspiracy is another one that we charge, conspiracy to smuggle. So if someone's directing someone to bring pesticides from Mexico into the US, we can charge conspiracy, and that's another heavy hitter. It's a felony as well. And then the Title 21 codes, manufacturing controlled substances, and conspiracy again. So those are just some examples of charges that we might go after. I'm sure a lot of you know FIFRA, so I don't want to get too into the weeds on it, but the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. If you knowingly sell or distribute an unregistered pesticide, so if you smuggle it from Mexico into the United States and you want to sell it, we can charge FIFRA under that. But again, this is just a misdemeanor, so we always try to go after conspiracy or smuggling as well, just to get potential more jail time there. The way that we know that they're unregistered is, one, they're in Spanish. For a registered pesticide, they have to be in English. The label has to be in English, and it also has to have a registration ID. So when we intercept pesticides coming across the border, those are the two things that we look for. And that's just to prove that, yes, it's an unregistered pesticide, and yes, it was made in Mexico. And that's pretty easy to identify. There's some examples of labels. Obviously, you can't really tell, but I'll show some pictures later of closer up labels. But if it's in Spanish and it doesn't have an EPA registration, it's an unregistered pesticide, and most likely it's been smuggled from Mexico. So we see a lot of these showing up on illegal marijuana grows, and the reason for that is because EPA has banned a lot of these pesticides because they're super dangerous, but they're really good at killing rodents, rats, things that are found on marijuana grows, and so people will go down to Mexico, buy it, and then smuggle it in to use on their illegal marijuana grows. But eventually this stuff leaks into our groundwater, people come in contact with it, and we've seen a lot of injuries from that and a lot of contamination to our soil and groundwater from these unregistered pesticides. There is a narrow scope, so for FIFRA, it does not apply to possession, so we can't charge somebody with simply possessing an unregistered pesticide. That's why when we come in contact with an unregistered pesticide, we're trying to go back to the point of where it came from so we can maybe charge smuggling or conspiracy. It is a limited scope, and that's bad for us, but there are other ways that we can charge somebody for illegally possessing an unregistered pesticide. It also does not apply to use, so if somebody's using it, we also can't charge that, unfortunately, but we do still investigate it and we try to get back to the source of where it came from, and then we can charge it from there. The state of California has different laws. The state is able to charge for use and possession, so sometimes if we have a case involving the use or possession of an unregistered pesticide, we'll refer it to our state partners, and they'll look into prosecuting it from there. Some common pesticides that we encounter, aluminum phosphide, carbofuran, chloropyrifos, dichlorobos, methimidopos, methamil, and zinc phosphide. These are all banned by EPA, but these are super dangerous pesticides that are used on illegal marijuana grows. And the reason being is because they're super toxic. They kill rats and rodents, things like that, things that would come into contact on a marijuana grow. This is a picture that that we've took during a search warrant, and this is kind of like the aftermath of an illegal marijuana grow, and you can see a lot of bottles, a lot of staining on the ground. So this ends up coming onto our land, and this is the result of illegal pesticides coming onto marijuana grows. A lot of times these growers don't know the use of these pesticides, they don't know how to properly store or dispose of it, and so it ends up being a huge impact to our environment for both soil and water and the humans that are interacting with it. An example of a label, so this is Quechan. The main ingredient is carbofuran. It was banned by EPA a long time ago. But just an example of like what this would look like. So obviously all in Spanish, danger in Spanish right down here. Not seeing any EPA registration on here. So right at this point, we would know that this is an illegal pesticide. This was most likely smuggled from Mexico. So this is something that we look for when we come in contact with pesticides. We're looking at the label itself to see what's on it. And mostly we're looking for any English lettering, language, or the EPA registration. Another example, this is Bovatraz. We've seen this come across the border more and more. This is actually used for beehives. The active ingredient is amitraz, and amitraz in this form was banned by EPA in 2014. if people come in contact with it, it causes seizures, it causes neurological symptoms, and so EPA banned it in 2014. But the active ingredient amitraz is used for varroa mites on bees, and so beekeepers tend to use this product. There's a similar type of active ingredient that is EPA registered, but it's in a strip form and the concentration is much less, so it's not dangerous to humans since it's in a strip form and the amitraz concentration is less, but it's more expensive. So we see people going down to Mexico buying this in Mexico because it's cheaper, and then they're bringing it into the US to use on their beehives. There are some studies that show the amitraz ends up going into the wax and then transfers from the wax to honey, and we are ingesting that honey. So EPA banned it, but we do see it come across just because it is a cheaper form and it is more highly concentrated. So that's something that we also look for. Again, no English language on here, no EPA registration. So this is something that we would look for at the border, and we would try to stop that from coming over. Some more examples. So the common types that we see, all of these are in Spanish. They say sometimes at the bottom, toxic in Spanish, peligro, no EPA registration ID. So this is what you would see if you came into contact. And at that point, you can always contact EPA CID. We're happy to help identify these pesticides and at least try to figure out where it came from and if we can charge smuggling or conspiracy. We see it come across all ports of entry. I'm in San Diego, so I mostly work the San Diego port of entry, but I also work the Tucson port of entry and Calexico as well. So we pretty much cover the entire southern border right now. We also have agents in Texas as a part of Region 30 that respond to the Texas border. So we work with our CBP partners and we respond to all ports of entry when we see these pesticides come across. The way that we do our investigations, we really rely on CBP to call us. So if CBP comes across these things at the border, they'll call us as agents and we'll respond sometimes in the middle of the night. So we work with them to gather the evidence. We'll seize the pesticides. We'll have them tested. HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, is another one of our partners. They're also a federal agency with special agents. And so we work together to gather evidence, track the unregistered pesticides. Again, we're trying to prevent these pesticides from even coming into the United States. So we're trying to intercept it at the border, stop it from coming across. But if it does make it across and we find it, say, on a tribal land, on a public land, we're then trying to trace it back to where it came from. So then we can charge smuggling or conspiracy at that point. We've seen these illegal pesticides on tribal lands, on public lands, and mostly like illegal marijuana grows is the main places that we see it. But we also see, we had an interesting case where somebody just in a normal home had bought a rodenticide in Mexico, didn't realize it was illegal in the US, and she brought it back to her apartment here in San Diego. And it didn't have a label on it, so she didn't know what it was after she took the label off. And at the house, the grandmother was watching two small children, and since the bottle didn't have a label on it, the grandmother mistakenly thought it was cough syrup because it was green, and she gave it to two grandchildren, and unfortunately, they both passed away. So that's kind of one of the cases that we see. We see bigger cases of smuggling, and we see even smaller cases of people just not knowing that this stuff is illegal and not realizing how dangerous it is. And so we're trying to stop that from even coming across and getting into contact with humans. From this initiative, we've had 65 convictions. I think the number has even gone up. We had a few last week, so I think it's up to 75 convictions, 220,000 in restitution. The restitution goes for the disposal of pesticides. So if we seize it, we want to make sure it's disposed of properly. So we'll add the restitution to our sentencing to make sure that it's disposed of properly and doesn't end up on public lands. $59,000 in fines, 65 vehicles seized, and 1,300 jail time days. So that's pretty high for environmental cases. Usually for environmental cases, we don't get a ton of jail time, but again, we try to charge that smuggling charge because it does carry weight for jail time versus FIFRA, which is just a misdemeanor. 35 years as supervised released and 392 days of community service. So really good outcome just from us trying to stop these pesticides from coming across the border. And we've definitely made an impact. We've seen the trend go way down for people trying to smuggle pesticides across the US border. So I think our efforts have really made an impact in our community. And we're always happy to help tribal lands if you ever come into contact with illegal pesticides. Again, look for, Spanish labeling, no EPA registration. Please call us. We're happy to go out and interview people, try to figure out where these pesticides come from, and we also can help with the disposal of it. One thing I wanted to touch on is a case that I had. It was at the La Posta Indian Reservation down in San Diego. There was a bunch of pesticides that had been dumped. And so EPA on-scene coordinators went out there to respond. They tested the soil. They realized it was contaminated with pesticides. At that point, we actually were able to charge a RCRA, so Resource Conservation and Recovery Act hazardous waste violation, and that is a felony. So we were able to charge somebody with that. So if there is some sort of dumping on tribal lands, that's something that we could also come out, respond to, and eventually charge, since we do have authority over tribal land. So just something to keep in mind. Both FIFRA and RCRA is both statutes that we have authority over and we can charge. So here's my contact. Please always contact us. We're happy to help. We have agents all over California. We don't have agents in Arizona, but we also respond to Arizona as well. So feel free to contact me. The Assistant Special Agent in charge is Benjamin Carr. He's down in San Diego with me. He helps, since he's the supervisor, he really helps. If a lead comes in, he decides who gets it. So if there's something up around here, maybe a San Francisco agent would take it versus something down in San Diego would be something that I would take. So definitely you can always reach out to me. I have my cell phone on me at all times, but also reach out to Benjamin Carr, because he can help get the right person in contact with you to deal with unregistered pesticides. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle. And now to transition over to Jeremy Phillips. So there is a strong effort at the border, but as much as we try, we're not perfect. And these pesticides sometimes make it further out than what is considered the border. So to continue us on, here is Jeremy Phillips.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeremy Phillips. I work with the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. I'm the Senior Environmental Engineer, /Supervisor of Environmental Programs. We are located in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is kind of right next door to Phoenix. And I'm going to kind of talk briefly about our HHW event. Like other Indian communities, after COVID kind of died down, we ended up with a lot of hand sanitizers, alcohol wipes, and some of them were water-based, but some of them were alcohol-based. So we didn't know how we were going to get rid of those wastes. So we turned around and we were able to get funding from my project officer. He's sitting in the back, Peter Early. For a couple of years, we got funding for our HHW event, and we started hosting an HHW event. But let me go backwards a little bit. We also have an integrated pest management program in our pesticide program, and then we also have a pollinator protection program within our pesticide program. And currently, we have a staff of 3. I have Victor Gonzalez in the back. He's our compliance person. And we have 2 inspectors, which is Corwin Smith and Anthony Martinez. They weren't able to make it on the trip, but they're back at home watching the hen house. So next slide. Right here is just kind of a brief history of how we first started. When we first started our pesticide program, we did get a lot of assistance from the Intertribal Council of Arizona. They were real instrumental in helping us start our program. They helped us with our codes. They helped us with our QAP, our SOPs, our enforcement matrix, our enforcement policy response. So we were able to get a lot of help from Intertribal Council. And it wasn't until 2000 that we decided to go direct funding and, manage our own program and just deal directly with EPA. Right here is just kind of a brief, or how do you say, just a simple map. If you look over here where the red section is, um, we're surrounded by Scottsdale, Arizona, or Scottsdale, the city of Scottsdale. And on top, the city of Scottsdale, we have Tempe, Mesa, and we have Fountain Hills on the other end. So we're kind of surrounded by all cities. And one of the things that we also started having a problem with was when the weather starts getting cooler, the residents that lived in town started dumping their waste on the reservation. So a lot of times we would come to work and we would see like piles of garbage along the road, and we would have to notify our staff that we notify our staff, and then our staff would notify the laborers that they would have to go out there and pick up those dumps. But we started getting everything from just dirt, household trash, yard waste, paint cans, oil drums, and even some pesticides and herbicides. One of the main things that we had to do in our community was we had to do a lot of extensive outreach. We started getting, community members that they were good community members. They would go out and try to clean up the mess themselves, that somebody else left. And what we told them is it's better that they don't do that, because we needed to uh, inspect the site where the dumping was at and categorize it if it was safe or if it was hazardous. We didn't want the community member to go out there and start loading up dirt that might be contaminated with oil or even pesticides. So, you know, uh, so that was one of our outreach, and then we also did outreach on proper pesticide use, herbicide use, and then also the proper disposal of those products. And um, outreach was conducted at our senior breakfast, which is once a month, and then we also conducted a lot of outreach at our food bank and at our Helping Hands um, clothing store. Before we came out here on Saturday the 19th, we had our recent our HHW event, and at that event, it was very successful. We gathered over 10,000 pounds of household hazardous waste. Out of that 10,000 pounds, we gathered over 800 pounds of pesticides and herbicide waste. And it was, pesticide, herbicide, pool shock, fungicide, antimicrobials, Clorox wipes. We just had a good turnout, and I guess one of the biggest problems that we had was community members were just stockpiling all these chemicals, or if they needed to buy weed killer or insecticide for their own use, they would go to Walmart, and at Walmart they would see the twin pack that's on sale for $12, and like a single container would be $10. So they would think, oh, I'll get the twin pack because I'm saving more money and I can use this later on. But what ended up happening is a lot of the community members, a lot of seniors, they started stockpiling these chemicals. So, some of the community members where we did pickups, they would end up with like maybe 4 bags of diazinon. I think they're probably like 15-pound bags. They would have bags just stockpile there. Or they would have the 1-gallon containers of orethine bug killer. And, sometimes they would just have it there for years, and then they would start leaking. So we would have to go out there and we would have to recover those products, clean up the area, and then dispose of the products safely and correctly. And right here is just a couple of postcards that talk about our event. Um, the one on top was for Earth Day, and on our Earth Day event, we collected over 13,000 pounds and over 800 pounds of pesticide. And then below is the recent fall overhaul that we had this past week. And we had our fall overhaul event on the 18th, and then we had our HHW event on the 19th. And how we did a lot of our outreach and education to promote the event was doing the postcards in the mailboxes. And then we also had electronic built-in boards throughout the community that talked about the event. Again, when we started our event, we had a site plan. We had what we were going to do, who was going to be in charge of, you know, what job they had, and then another part was meeting with our staff, telling the staff that, you know, you're going to be in charge of the entrance. Corwin, you'll be in charge of the pickup, and Victor, you'll be in charge of doing senior pickup. So um, you know, that was kind of part of our site plan of who's going to be in charge of doing what project or what job. And then we also met with our consultant, which was an environmental emergency response. So they were the ones that turned around, and once we collected the waste, they turned around and they categorized it, processed it, and got it ready for shipping. And then, of course, we met with our Salt River Fire Department and our Salt River Police Department, as well as the hazmat the hazmat team from Mesa Fire Department. Um, Again, this is just from one of our events. This is what we kind of got in like 1 hour, and this is electronic waste, everything from TVs to refrigerators to old computers to, you know, refrigeration thermostats. You know, a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know that refrigerators have freon in there, and you know, freon can be a hazardous waste. We can't just take it to the landfill and dump it. The freon in those refrigerators have to be, you know, purged out. The freon has to be recycled, and then once that's done, then they can get rid of the refrigerator. And again, right here, we just a couple examples of what we get. Again, we're surrounded by cities, but we're also neighbors to the Gila River Indian community, Quechan Indian community, and I think we're about 2 hours away from Tonoatam, which is up in southern Tucson. But we do get a lot of products, everything from insecticide to flea powder to even the do-it-yourself sprays in the bottom, and then even some agricultural use pesticides. And for us, we don't ask them, hey, where did you get that? Say, where did you get that container of pre-far? You know, we don't ask any questions. We're just happy that they bring it to our event, and it's a pesticide that's off the reservation. So we don't ask questions on, hey, where did you get this? Or again, if it's a product that's only used by farmers or certified applicators, we don't say, hey, where did you get this? You're not supposed to have this. Do you have a license? We don't ask any of that questions. We're just happy to take those products off the reservation. And again, right here, you'll see 3 bags of Bug Be Gone. And this is just an example of seniors, you know, when they go to Walmart and they buy these multi-packs, or, they'll say, buy 1 bag of Bug Be Gone for $5 and get the other one for $5 instead of just buying one for 10 or something, you know. But this one that we got from a resident, all of those products on the table, those pesticides weren't even used. So, they were still sealed in the containers. The bug sprays weren't even used. But again, we were happy that we got that off the reservation because we don't want the community member to be dumping those, behind their house or in a ditch, or even in the household garbage cans. So that's just kind of a good example of us reclaiming that product and then properly disposing of it. Another thing that we also get a lot of, we probably get over maybe 400 pounds of just old medicine. We have an IHS hospital on our reservation. So it seems like a lot of times when they're giving the medicines out to the people, for some reason they give them a 4-month supply. So we end up with a lot of diabetes medicine, a lot of high blood pressure medicine. We do get some narcotics, some morphine, some hydrocodone, and with those products, we do accept those, but we have a different way to dispose of those. And just another example, we get pool cleaner, floor wax. We get tons of paint. We also get oil, batteries, containers full of propane, and just a lot of other random household items. A lot of antimicrobials like Windex, Clorox wipes, Lysol spray. So we get a lot of those products. And then once our event's over, then we have to make sure that we categorize all of the waste, meaning that we have to determine how much, how many pounds of electronic waste we got, what do we have in there. We have to categorize all of that. And then from there, we develop our manifest. And it's an official manifest that the waste hauler carries with them. And if they ever get pulled over by highway patrol or another state agency, they can pull up that manifest and they can show what's exactly on the truck. So I deal a lot with pesticides, but and we get a majority of our funding from FIFRA, which is the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, Rodenticide Act. But we also have to train in RCRA, CERCLA, and in DOT, because when we're packaging this up and we're getting it ready to move, I have to make sure that they're doing their job correctly, and we just have to make sure we have everything covered. Because if there is a problem, say they're making their way to Oakland, a lot of the paint goes to Oakland for disposal and recycle. But if they had an accident on I-5, and they said they had 600 gallons of paint, but they only had 400 gallons, then the hauler is liable, but also our community is liable, because I didn't do my due diligence to make sure there was the accurate amount of paint on that truck. So the only way I can finally relax is when it gets to the company that's going to recycle the waste, and then they usually send me a paper saying it's called a dead slip. So they say they say we acknowledge your 600 pounds of paint or 600 gallons of paint, and it was brought to our facility. We have possession of it, and he goes into some more detail. But basically, that just tells me that since they have it, now it's their responsibility, and that my responsibility is over. But a lot of that DOT and a lot of the site plans and all the stuff that went into doing the HHW, it was things that I didn't know. I was doing a lot of pesticides. I know a lot about pesticides. I know a lot about worker protection, but the DOT part of it, the haz waste part of it, I got a lot of that training from Intertribal Council of Arizona. I I got a lot of training, and I got a lot of outreach. I got a lot of training, and I got a lot of assistance from the solid waste person that works at Intertribal Council of Arizona. His name was Brian Davison, and he was able to help me, understand what we need to do, how we do a site plan, and basically myself as a customer, to make, how do I make sure the consultant that we're using is doing the correct job that he's supposed to be doing? Because like I said, if I have a problem, if we have an oil spill, then I got CID coming and knocking on our door over there at Salt River saying, "Hey, what happened?" And I don't want to deal with EPA CID, so I got to make sure I do it right. And again, here's us signing the manifest. And don't worry about the barrel; it's empty, so I'm not contaminating myself. But this past event, we had 9 manifests that I had to sign, everything from paint to the household waste to tires to even pesticides. Every item that we collect has to have a manifest and it has to show the right amount that we collected. And again, that's for DOT. If they ever get pulled over, then DOT is going to check that manifest. And if there's anything wrong with it, they're going to get after the transporter, but then they're going to turn around and come after me and say, how come you didn't make sure there was the right amount on that manifest? And again, here's just some of our events that we had this year. Our next event's going to be Earth Day, right, Vic? And that's going to be in April sometime. So, we get a couple of months rest, and then come January, then we start preparing for our Earth Day event. And then here's my contact information. And I guess the biggest thing that I just kind of want to say again is when you're taking on a project like this, make sure you have contact with your project officer or your EPA folks. Make sure you have contact with people that can help you. Again, a good resource for us was Intertribal Council of Arizona. They were there to help us and provide us training and tell us exactly what we kind of needed, to make sure that we were following the rules and regulations. That's it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Such great resources. And I'm pretty sure our 2 presenters themselves are open to being a resource. So just to put a small plug in, there is a work group. So I just wanted to put a face to the name. So if I could entice Africa to come, or if I could come to you, just so that the group knows that there is a pesticides work group.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Africa Doraba Avalos. I'm with the Intertribal Council of Arizona, but I manage the pesticide program, and I am the lead for the RTIC Pesticide Working Group. So I just took over that position a couple of RTICs ago, and so the goal of that is to reach out to tribes that have pesticide programs or are wanting to do pesticide-related activities, whether they have a cooperative agreement or not with EPA. If they have, for example, a GAP program, there are some activities that can be done under GAP that are pesticide related. For example, just establishing or implementing programmatic documents. So our focus is providing training and outreach to tribal communities in Arizona, but we also do outreach to tribes in other regions. Provide pesticide safety training for agricultural workers and handlers, and I provide trainings in English and Spanish. So in regards to the working group, we want to get that momentum going again and identify what the challenges are and what the needs are with tribal communities, and we can navigate through that, provide resources, whether it's from federal agencies, EPA, or tribal consortia, or even our tribal partners as well. So there are robust programs that tribes have in Arizona in regards to pesticides, so they're always willing to help. Salt River, Pia Maricopa being one of them, Gila River, Auction. We're all here to help you guys navigate through that and ensure that pesticides are being used accordingly. Again, my name is Africa. My email is on the ITCA website. I don't have a presentation today, but if you guys, I'll be here throughout the day, and so if you guys want to chit chat and stuff, so I'll be here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So we have a few minutes. Are there any questions that anybody would like to inquire of our presenters today? Oh, there is a question in the back.
My question is for Jeremy. I don't know where he ran off to. For your household hazardous waste collection events, so we also have those. We have a hard time with, we have a rule in our solid and waste ordinance that states that it's household hazardous waste that we take. And if you have a business or enterprise of your own, like a tribal member on their land, they're responsible for the disposal of their waste. And so what we see is there's a very large greenhouse operation that's growing strawberries. And we'll see some waste that we kind of assume is coming from that site. It'll just be dumped in front of my hazardous waste collection area. And I'll just show up to a surprise, very large container of unknown substances. And it's very frustrating. Do you have anything, or does anyone have anything and that has like similar, ordinance, and how do you go about enforcing that?
I think for us, like let's just say your strawberry farm, they have to have a lease through your community. So a lot of times we write that wording in the lease that they'll keep their, they'll keep the area clean and they'll properly dispose of all their waste, or it could be a violation of their lease. And then if it if it continues to happen, then the community has the right to cancel. So on our reservation, we're right there in the middle of the Phoenix area. So a lot of the cheap the low, like if you're renting space, a lot of the lower prices are on reservations, So in our community, we have a lot of small businesses, from businesses that make lithium batteries to business that make diet food. We have a company called Plexar. I guess they make diet food. And then we also have that Cold Stone Creamery, which they make all the new flavors. But we also have a lot of restaurants and smaller companies. So when those guys sign a lease with the community, we make sure that they understand that they have to keep those areas clean, and they have to remove their haz waste and properly dispose of it. So that's the biggest thing that you look at, is if your lease is, if your code is lacking and you don't have anything in there that talks about, say, proper disposal or getting rid of waste, hazardous waste, then you can always put in your lease. That's something that can be put in your lease where you can enforce that right then and there, because we all know if you're redeveloping tribal codes and stuff, that it could be a long process. You have to wait for, of course, your department to approve it, and then it goes through Office of General Counsel, and then finally makes it to the council. And then if everything gets approved, and then it'll finally go to president for signature, which a lot of times that could be a 2-year or 3 or 4-year process. So one way that we kind of went around that is putting all those conditions in the lease. So maybe that's something that you could do. But we also had a company that brought in a bunch of I guess they might have been transformer batteries. They're really huge. And myself and Victor, we were out collecting household hazardous waste from seniors. So when those batteries came back, when somebody dumped off those batteries, we asked the contractor who brought that over, and they said it was truck 113 or something like that, and we found out it was one of the companies on the reservation. So we turned around and we called that company, and we told them that you need to pick up this waste because you're in violation of your lease. So they went back over there and they picked up those batteries, you know, and that's kind of like the effective way that we go for. If it's not in our ordinance, we're able to enforce with our lease.
So, and we do have lessees and we do have those policies for them in place, and they're a lot easier to enforce. Specifically, if it's tribal members on their own land who have their own business on their own land, they're not leasing. That's what we're having an issue with.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it.
She said, how about people on their own property? How do you enforce the legal dumping? Like a graffiti, like person dumps.
Usually we have like the residential code and commercial codes that we follow. So if it's residential, they're not allowed to have businesses on there. So we just go through our codes in the community that we enforce. So basically.
And sometimes we just have to bite the bullet and just kind of tell them that, hey, we're here to help, and try to provide education on saying, like, like one person, all they did was collect refrigerators for some reason. And we just had to tell them the dangers about it, and hope that they listen to us. If not, then again, we had to look at their lease agreement, their home lease through the BIA. And we use some of that wording that was in the BIA home lease to enforce against them. Because a lot of community members, they think, oh, this is my land. This is my house. You can't take it away from me. But when we start telling them that it's trust land, it's actually land that's, you're able to live on it, but eventually it belongs to BIA. And BIA has these rules and regulations that we need to follow. And then usually when you start saying that, and you kind of start saying we need to abide by their rules too, or you could get that home site taken away from you. And then usually that's when we start getting some results.
Hi, I don't know if we've formally met before, but I'm Peter Early. I'm one of the project officers in the pesticide section. I'm also on the work group with Africa too. So I know our office, we do a lot of technical assistance with issues like you just mentioned. So feel free to reach out to me. I can give you my contact information. Also, for anyone else here that's kind of going through a similar issue, I know my manager is online right now. She's unable to talk, but we can, chat afterwards and kind of discuss things further.
And I would like to add that one of the biggest factors, of course, communication, as it was mentioned, providing that outreach and education and ensuring compliance, right? But one thing that can be enforced in the interim is that nurseries, forests, farms, greenhouses, they fall under the worker protection standard. So that's an establishment that can fall under that regulation as well. Not only that, but the label. So if there is a pesticide that they are applying, the label is the law, so they would have to abide by that. So that's something that can be enforceable in the interim while you develop, any type of ordinances within your tribal jurisdictions. And it is challenging because if it's a tribal entity, right? How do you ensure compliance? And again, the biggest factor is building that rapport and that communication between yourself and that entity. Because the ultimate mission is to ensure compliance, right? And ensure that they are properly using those products. So that's just a suggestion that I have, but we're all here to provide that technical support as well.
And one more thing, I think, just communication. Like for us, when we do something at someone's home site, we make sure that we talk to our people that do the permits, that we talk to our public builders, our engineering construction people, and then we also talk to our office of general counsel citing for a violation, like I have a bunch of mobile homes on my home site. Victor makes sure that he doesn't touch the bases with everybody. So when he goes out there, it gives me that notice and tells me that I have to move it up, or I can potentially move to my home site. Everybody's involved. So when, I turn around and I say, well, Victor, you can't do that, I'll go to council. And then Victor can say, well, council gave their approval on this date. So that's one of the biggest things, just communication with all your departments. And once you get that, it makes it a lot easier for you. It makes it a lot easier for you to get them to clean up, but also if he needs to do some kind of enforcement action, it just makes it a lot easier because everybody's going in the same direction. So communication is the biggest thing too.
Thank you, everyone, so much, and such great discussions, so much great information. But yes, we've gone a little over, but thank you so much for being here and for our presenters.